Okay, I'm going to get started. Happy Friday, everyone. So, Mary is taking some time off. We wish her a great time taking a break from everything. It's been super crazy. Today, I'm going to talk about, customer appreciation, how to leverage clients' creative ways to do all of this. I'm just going to keep it an interactive, discussion. Feel free to raise your hand, chime in at any time. If you have comments, questions, or anything you'd like to contribute. We're going to keep it kind of fun and engaging and not boring and go through a deck or anything like that. So a couple ways, I'm just going to kind of dive in. I've done everything from spearheading and launching a community from scratch where we had no data, lack of data for a startup, right? And very, very limited resources, limited budget, and so forth. And a couple ways, when I launched the community, there's ways to kind of get information from people. So we ask people to check off things that they're willing to participate in, whether it's a case study, doing customer quotes, videos, participating, at a conference, and customer references, because sometimes people can actually participate by doing a reference call, but they're not able to actually get approval to do a case study and have their brand, posted somewhere due to legal reasons. An example that we had was we had a really big client, and Target was one of our big clients, and she was able to get on quite a few reference calls and help us close deals, but she was not able to get around legal and do any type of case study or quotes where the brand would be published or the name associated with any type of published material without having to deal with legal issues. I kind of wanted to see, like, everybody here has, what's the experience level for you as far as, launching a brand new community for a startup versus, taking on a community that's already kind of mature and already had things in place? I don't see, everybody's on mute. Let me see. Can everybody raise their hand? My screen is going crazy on the bottom here, so not sure if you guys can unmute yourself or raise your hands at all.
Can you see the chat?
Okay, let me look at, so I'm here and I can see this, but my chat, it's going crazy on the bottom. It's going nuts on the bottom. It's moving everywhere, so I'm not sure. Let me see. I'm clicking on the chat button.
Yeah, it's looking like there's, both kind of taking over a community that exists and also that kind of starting from scratch experience in this group from what I see in the chat, Tiffany.
Okay, so nothing in place. I've done both, launched a community from scratch. And what kind of like roadblocks have you seen, or what are the issues around getting people to participate? Are you running into legal issues, or people just aren't raising their hand? Is there actually community? Because I manage the community through Influitive at both places, and one was a startup where I did everything from A to Z from scratch, and one was kind of helping and growing the community and recruiting more folks in to get more hand raisers. Let's see now.
I'll say from my standpoint, Tiffany, like community for me, been doing like customer marketing many years. It's been the hardest thing ever. Like to launch it, get, signups. That's I think not that hard, but the ongoing participation is like so difficult for me, at least in my done 3 different companies, helped launch them, never took over one, did one in LinkedIn. That actually worked fairly decent. I think just because everyone was there already.
Right.
But yeah, it's just been really difficult. The ongoing, like year 1 through 3, so to speak, of it. Not the initial launch, people signing up, they're happy to join, but the ongoing engagement.
Okay, so are you managing it in a platform, or are you doing it just with like Google Docs and spreadsheets?
Well, the community was one was on LinkedIn, one was Influitive, another was it was like I forget the name of it, but it was like one of the top 3 or 4 like community platforms.
Right. What did you find the most useful or the easiest? out of all the three. Like LinkedIn, that's different for me because people sometimes use, Slack to have their little mini
Yeah.
communities, but I manage everything in Influitive. But now that Influitive has changed so much,
Yeah.
if I were to leverage, I would not actually do a demo with them at all.
Yeah, I'd say the getting people there, and that's why LinkedIn for me was most successful. Like they're already there, they don't need a separate login. They may readily or already be going to that location for seeing their behavior. What worked out best was offering something, advice that they couldn't necessarily get on their own.
Right. Okay. So how were you able to reward people? Like on LinkedIn, did they manually email you, send you information on where if you wanted to get them
No,
back?
not that. Influitive took care of that. Like LinkedIn was no rewards, zero. You know,
Right. Okay.
Influitive though, that was a good way um, to get rewards integrated into the community.
Right. Right. So what did you do to kind of get more hand raisers? Did you send, because you said, Influitive and LinkedIn, where they were separate communities. How did it all talk to each other, if it did?
Independent, those were different periods. So one company I was at used LinkedIn for the community. Another company used Influitive. Another company we had like I forget the name of it. It's not coming to me, but uh, those were three different jobs that I had, three different ways to use community.
Right. So I use, okay, so Tango is what was obviously integrated with Influitive, and there were some technical problems, throughout the years with them. And another platform that I use, or that the CSMs use, is called Thanks. And it was a really easy platform to use. You could just send it, you can text them the link, or you can just email them a link. They can decide, you can make it where it's interactive, where they can decide, it's like $100 gift. They can pick whatever gift they'd like. Or you can also do things like send them, an Uber ride and things of that nature, and you only pay for what you use. So that's a really nice platform. I also sent a lot of swag and looked into different platforms to do that. To host and everything, it's expensive. I have a lot of great contacts that I, order swag from. So if anybody needs contacts, I don't get anything to promote or anything. I'm not personally promoting or anything, but we all would like, we're all just helping each other, right? So anything we can share and support each other and just let people know that, oh, Tiffany referred you. She said you were great. So I have quite a few vendors that I use to order swag, everything from t-shirts to custom type of. What we did is we had something for people that had babies that were clients. So if they had a baby, we would send them kind of like a mini Maven, care package with like a little swaddle blanket with our logo on it, a onesie with our logo on it, and a few other gift items. There's a lot of different ways to kind of leverage this. And then customer appreciation, people celebrate it, on different days, because I hear, the third week of May, but the National Customer Appreciation Day is, April 18th. So what I try to do is, for my great clients or advocates in the community, I might send them a gift card in the community, or send them swag out ahead of time if I have their address, or I can reach out and ask them throughout the year. I usually keep a tracker or information in Salesforce of where they're located, just because there's so many companies that obviously are in a hybrid work situation or completely remote. So having that information is really, really important. Other ways you can show appreciation is to nominate, your customer for an award, or if a publication or magazine is looking for a certain type of use case and they'd like to, you know, get someone who has a great use case, you can leverage your customers by doing all the legwork for them. And it does take time. You can say, I'd love to nominate you for this use case, because MavenLink was a project management company. So if someone had a unique use case, I would try to leverage that. So then they get some PR. It's good for their SEO, SEM. And then it's a win-win for us. It's like MavenLink's customer XYZ did A, B, and C, right? So it's a win-win for everybody. And that's another nice way to kind of showcase your clients, show appreciation, and do some of the legwork for them instead of asking all the time. I see Rebecca here says, can we talk about holiday plans too? Absolutely. What about holiday plans would you like to talk about, Rebecca? You can either talk or you can
Sure.
chat, and I can try to
Yeah, just
answer.
we're sort of talking about how do we thank customers and how do we engage with them. And I'm trying to start getting ahead of it and think about holiday now, and curious if there's anything that you've done or that other folks have done, to engage with your biggest customers around the holidays. Obviously, we can send something swag or something non-swag. But just curious if anything's done we're talking about gifting. So if anything's done, if anyone has done anything a little bit more interesting or different other than sending branded or unbranded gifting for the holidays.
What we do at my company, it's not unique or anything. We have kind of a Christmas card signing party. So a lot of the CSMs and a few people, certain days will just sit out, take an hour or two and sign a bunch of cards. I like that idea, but I also don't like, because I don't think it's that personable to have a bunch of signatures on a Christmas card, right? To me, I like to write personal ones. So I write personal ones to customers that are in the community, and I send them swag, or they can also choose to, make a donation to a charity. And usually that's a charity that we pick. I think we give them an option of one or two, like a water organization, and there was something else that we did. So that's something that you can offer. But then there might be instances where people actually, would like to get something for themselves. So it was kind of hard to decide for me on if we should say, okay, your $50 or $100 going to this charity organization. Because what if they have a third charity organization that they like better? And you can't give everybody all the options. But that's one thing we did. And then, of course, custom gifts like wine, fruit baskets, and things of that nature. And you do have to think really in advance and start ordering Christmas cards like now, because it's going to get really busy when it gets closer to Christmas around October and so forth. Please, anyone else that have ideas, please feel free to share or chime in. I don't see anyone else. Thanks is another thing we can also use to do all of that as well, to send out gifts. Can email them, thank you, please, pick your Christmas gift, whatever that may be, whether it's food items or a spa package or whatever that may be.
Yeah, Tiffany, and I was just noticing that I think it's Bria here that's mentioning about, sending things, doing something around the November timeframe. And I've done that in hopes that maybe the connection gets a little more notice than getting smack dab in the middle of the holiday season when everyone's reaching out, and it almost is overwhelming, I think, sometimes to, the folks that we're trying to provide some kind of a special touch with. So doing it a little early in the November timeframe, I think, has been successful. I don't know if Bria has anything else she wants to share about that, but I think that's good strategy.
For sure, the earlier the better. It's just a lot of times, people get, it was crazy to do like a snail mail campaign, which is what we did. We actually put stamps on it and like signed a bunch of cards. So it was quite an effort, and you have to really organize, like I say, plan ahead, order your custom, Christmas cards really in advance, like right now. You got to be thinking about doing it right now. So everything comes in. That's a good idea. So do you try to get it to them, Sheila, before like Thanksgiving?
Yeah, just as, and it was definitely a thanks and gratitude kind of play. And it was, simple. And, one year it was really just a card, but instead of being like full holiday, during the December timeframe, when people again are just hectic, getting early in in that kind of connected to Thanksgiving, but again, ahead of Thanksgiving, I think did work pretty well. And you do get those little, oh, thank you so much for remembering me or us, or, that kind of thing. And I mean, that really is kind of what we're trying to do, right? Just a nice, high quality touch to those customers, letting them know that we appreciate them, right?
Right. Definitely. That's definitely really important.
I can chime in a bit too. Something that I used to do at my last company, and I'm going to start bringing here, is I'm really into gifting with experiences. So thinking beyond just like what is the physical gift you can give, but thinking about like an experience. So last year or the past few years, I've hosted like holiday parties for our advocates, like virtually. And we've done really cute things. There's certain vendors that will help you, like they integrate with Zoom to help with like different activities. So they'll do like, we did like a Family Feud one time. They can do like little virtual escape rooms. Like, we did an art. I had like a friend who's is an artist, and we like had her come on, and like we had sent people things ahead of time, and we're like, let's have a painting class. It was really cute, and people loved it. And so, thinking about, you can also, if you have budget, like use that budget to give them things that they can use for that activity. So like arts and crafts materials, if it's like a paint and sip, or if you're doing like a wine tasting, you could send them some wine. Just a thought, and helps me. I'm trying to noodle on what we want to do for this year, to be different. But yeah, it's I found that those have been also really successful.
Thanks, Jenna. That's definitely a great idea. Like there's, obviously I live in California, so if there's clients that are local, I could do, research, make it like a custom experience. It's called Pinot's Palette, and you can basically, we do it for group functions, work functions, right? And I do it with my sisters, or you can have wine and paint, right? And that's a good experience, and it's not super expensive. I think it's like $65, $70 per person. If you have a group of people that are 2, 3 people at a company that are advocates, that would be great. Or trying to commingle different advocates. If they're in Orange County, maybe they can all meet somewhere and, kind of get to know other people that are doing the same thing, like customer marketers and so forth. And ice cream and pizza parties back in the days where people were in the office, we could do that to say, okay, we're going to have a pizza party because you've done so much for us and are your product guys or whatever, and then have a budget, either have a pizza sent or an ice cream party on a Friday afternoon or something like that. And yes, definitely those types of experiences. It's fun. It changes up everything and stops the monotony of doing the same thing every time. And those are definitely great ideas as well. Anybody else have any ideas? And other ways that I celebrate advocates, you can have a highlight situation where I can highlight someone monthly or quarterly. Monthly can get kind of hectic, but maybe quarterly, kind of talk about a customer that's used your product in a certain way and how they've helped and supported you and so forth, and contributed to the community. You can actually have discussions in Influitive. So sometimes I'll help with that, where someone posts a question and nobody chimes in. I'll give points or gift cards and say, Jenna has a question here. Haven't seen anybody respond. Please, help her out by chiming in or sharing your experience and so forth. And then, give them extra points or gift cards and things of that nature. So those are, different ways you can highlight your customers, showcase them, make everybody, get the warm and fuzzies. And then other people would want to also do that because they want to be highlighted as well. And then, of course, I also had a community where it was internal for employees, where they would share on social and like certain things. And I tried to kind of validate those CS members or whoever it is on the product team that are sharing on social and engaging in the community as well. Does anybody have any other ideas? And has anyone used like Vanilla as their community platform? And how do they leverage that? Because Influitive has a gamification piece, but I've actually not used Vanilla or any of like Chorus, some of the other community platforms. How do you, has anyone managed anybody in those community platforms? And what has your experience been like?
We have Higher Logic at my last company, which bought Vanilla. But from a gamification perspective, we just did points and badges. We didn't do any physical gifts or anything like that. I was curious, Tiffany, you were mentioning a vendor at one point when I joined in. It was after somebody mentioned, I think, Sendoso, and there was there was a vendor that you were talking about, and I didn't write down the name of the vendor.
Oh, yes, it's Thanks. They're really great. And like I said, just to caveat everything is I'm not getting paid to say anything good or bad because I love what I do. I love customer marketing and all of you, and I want to support you guys in any way that I can. I'm always available on LinkedIn, and I know things get crazy with, I'm helping with a family. My mom's getting older, so all of that, right? All the baby boomers are not doing that awesome. But yes, it's Thanks. It's THNKS. And it's a super easy platform. It's so, as far as cost, it's minimal compared to everything else that's out there. Because a lot of the platforms, I don't know if it's changed, it's been a few years, You have to pay this licensing fee, this huge integration fee, and all this, all these extra fees to do this huge integration. And Thanks makes it so easy. If you send a link to someone and they actually don't redeem the gift, it got lost, they forgot, you don't have to pay for it. If you send someone a $50 thanks and say, hey, please pick whatever you want from here, and if they don't use it, you don't have to pay that $50. Where other places, you still have to pay a certain amount, or you have to integrate, and there's these licensing fees because it's SaaS, right? And so forth. So you can text them a link, you can email them a link, and they can pick. You can do things like Uber rides, Uber Eats, and so forth. So it's super nice. And Influitive, when I used them at Tango, there was some technical support or issues, and it wasn't as robust. It didn't have as many options. And it wasn't as turnkey, and calling support and paying for the community was kind of a nightmare. I'm trying to, add $5,000 into, our budget, and it's like pulling teeth. You have to call support and wait for a couple of days. So it wasn't the best experience. And then they started charging if you wanted to put on a credit card just to make it easy, right? Instead of getting an invoice, cutting a check, and all that, they would charge you like 3 to 6% to pay by credit card. It's like, why do I have to pay? Giving you money right away, it's better than waiting for a 30-day, 60-day invoice. But just things of that nature. And I've had a great experience with Thanks. Everybody that uses it loves it. It's super easy. So something else you can look into. I've looked into Sendosa a long time ago in the past, and there might have been someone else that I actually did a demo. I can't remember. But what is your experience with Higher Logic? Do you like them? Was it great? Did it do everything from A to Z, from references to gifting to data?
No, no, no. I mean, a Higher Logic is an online community platform. So, and historically, they have a lot of experience in associations and nonprofits. And then with Vanilla, that kind of brings over the enterprise side. But you can do advocacy things. You can create like gamification and that sort of thing. But it is an online community platform. Unlike, I know Influitive is a kind of customer advocate, a community that you can like do give, challenges and that sort of thing. And at least for us, for Higher Logic, it was our online community platform for the entire company, for anybody who was using it, whether they were an advocate or not. So,
Right.
But as far as advocate programs, you might have mentioned nominating customers for an award. So we had our own customer award program, which was a great way to really kind of highlight and kind of elevate the best of the best customers. It was actually a great way for those companies that wouldn't normally do a reference or a case study to get them to participate, because you're saying, hey, we want to put you up for this very prestigious award, and in order
Right.
to do it, we need your story. But we had during the pandemic, when everything was virtual, we would have a virtual celebration event, and then we'd have like a guest speaker. And first few years, we actually mailed out hundreds of gift packages to all of the people who were being, that were at the companies that we were celebrating. And we would tie it to like the speaker. Like one time we had an astronaut who was speaking, and so we sent out his book and like a little squishy astronaut and that kind of thing. Another time we went more charitable. So we were talking to the guest speaker was doing some things in Africa. So we did these like custom baskets that were made by women, and it had a little thing that with it. And we did another one where we did, we sent out these really nice blankets that like for every blanket they were planting a tree or something like that. So we did those sort of things. But quite honestly, the last year that we did this, we decided to go green, much like our events team was going green. And so we didn't send out a bunch of stuff because it's a big thing to manage. And there were so many issues, because we were doing this globally, so many issues with customs and things
Right.
not getting there, and the customers getting upset because it didn't arrive. And but it can be done well, and it can be, a nice enhancement to a program like an awards program or some other sort of VIP event and program.
What kind of budget did you have? Because it sounds like you have a pretty large budget. My budget was not that big for
Well,
both companies.
yeah, I mean, we might have had like, if we were featuring like 30 customers across all of our things, We probably said we would send out like 10 gifts per, but in actuality, we probably would only get like 200 names. But I mean, yeah, we had to pay for not just the items, which we went to a third party that we worked with, but really the big cost, which thankfully I didn't see it right hitting my program budget, was the shipping. So we did everything with our, FedEx or UPS or whatever. So it was hitting a number somewhere, but that's the other thing. We have done things if your company's got like um, a swag, like a store. We did things for, a limited number of customers where you could go to the store and we were giving you a certain, a gift certificate for a certain amount so they could buy something that they wanted. And what we learned, because again, it was a global group of customers, is that really needed to increase that because the shipping oftentimes cost more than the item.
swag.
Yeah.
Yes, I get that. I was
Yeah.
manually doing a lot of this with UPS, and then we got like an assistant or a coordinator that helped with that. I still was handwriting thank you notes by hand, and then he was helping to package it. And before, I was doing everything all on my own, packaging it at night, shipping it, driving to UPS once a week or what have you, and just kind of making it happen.
Yeah, a lot of
Thanks
times
so
if
much
it
for
was a nice gift package like we were sending out for these award customers, especially in other countries, we would almost recommend that we send it to like the sales team and have them deliver it if they were close by, just because we had so many customers that would get hit up within their country of, hey, they tell me I owe some sort of, tax on, I have to pay the customs fee in order to release this. And there's complications for sure. I had one more thought, which was more internal, but if your company has like a work human or one of those like reward systems for, giving add a person to somebody, we used that pretty successfully when we were incenting our account teams to give us leads that then ultimately would turn into a public customer story. And it was more internal, but we had a way to go in and basically gift them, and we could say, all right, you can share it with, one other person if you want, or you can get the points yourself. And so on a quarterly basis, we were going out and basically rewarding internal people rather than doing like a spiff. They'd get points and then they could go buy a golf club or, whatever it is that, that they could buy with all the points that they might have gotten through that system.
Right, nice. Can you nominate advocates in Higher Logic where a CSM says, I like this client, they've done a lot, I want to nominate them to be in the advocacy community? Because in Fluid, it was here with Salesforce integrated, you could do that. They can nominate, and then I can go in there and approve them or not approve them, right? So I know that there's a new person that was nominated by XYZ CSM. Is there something like that?
Not that we used, because the registration to become part of a community member, you had to go through the company's like registration, like as though you were going to log tickets or, look at the knowledge base and that sort of thing. And it wasn't integrated with Salesforce. We had our reference database company. We used Reference Edge. And that integration with Salesforce had the ability for people to go in if they were in Salesforce to nominate a customer or to request a reference, within Salesforce going through the reference database. But yeah, the community issue, I always had, that was always my tough thing with like Influitive, because we had a community already. It wasn't an advocate community, it's a practitioner community. And so can you add those advocate things in there? Or do you need something that's completely separate? So yeah, I mean, I don't think I don't think any of the, whether it was Khoros or Higher Logic or any of the other big online community platforms, they may have modules or elements that could help with stuff like that, but that is not their core for being.
Right. So are you using Higher Logic now? Do you still work for them, or?
I don't work for the company that I was at, but the company still uses Higher Logic as the online platform.
Okay, fantastic. Did anybody else have any questions, comments, or anything you'd like to ask? Feel free to chime in or chat or DM. Let me see.
I guess I might just add that to Kendra's point earlier, I think really kind of rewarding and incenting your internal teams to really kind of like support being the champions that connect us to those advocates, because I mean, it gets overwhelming, right? I mean, I know, Tiffany, you've talked about this. I think anybody on this call knows how, I mean, like, customer marketing is crazy, the amount of stuff that we manage. And then there's supposed to be this very personal, connected touch, that we're always offering. And so I think really making sure, like I've done, even as simple as Amazon gift cards to those internal team members on, especially CX, that really, and I mean, they love them. I mean, they will do almost anything for a great, gift card of, a decent amount. And I mean, the payoff is huge, when you can have, like suddenly we're like cloning ourselves a little bit, right? Out there, on, with that, they're the day-to-day touch with the customer. And so I think whenever you can incent them and reward them, it's the best thing you can do.
For sure.
Even a thank you goes a long way. I think somebody was saying that earlier. So, we give those points, but then I would basically send out an email to the managers to say, we just rewarded one of your employees for, and we didn't list it out, but it was like, these are the companies that got rewarded. So they would know that, that their people were getting, recognized for it. And that goes a long way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and also aligning kind of KPIs, right? Because again, this, customer marketing shouldn't sit over in a corner. I mean, leadership across teams should have, the support of advocacy and what we're trying to do through customer marketing as part of the KPIs, that they do need to be referring advocates or customers or helping secure a case study or a new, customer or an individual that's willing to do references. I just think that, really, I think a little bit from the top down, you need an organization that really, supports the win-win of customer marketing and advocacy and community, right?
Absolutely. So a couple things at the very beginning before I actually had a community of employee advocates and then customer advocates, right? Because I separate the two because I wanted the reporting to be obviously separated. So I would write handwritten thank you notes. Yes, it took a lot of time, and I was doing a lot of it out of my own pocket. I wasn't even asking the company for money. I didn't know what was happening. So I would write little thank you cards and put like $5 Starbucks card and leave it on their desk. This was the days before, COVID, and we were all remote. So you could do those nice things. You can obviously validate them. Another way to validate people is if someone actually said, hey, this person would be interested in a case study. When I launch a case study, I do a community-wide email, and then I put it in the Slack channel as well. And a couple things that I set up is title, subject, you thank whoever it is, thank the writer, you thank the CSM for managing, the customer well, and maybe throw in the salesperson too. So then that way they get acknowledged for selling a great account that obviously the CSM is managing. And sometimes some of the sales reps are very involved with the relationship still, like they talk to their customers a lot more than others. And so when you acknowledge people and validate it, everybody sees that, right? Because it's an email when you launch the case study that this person did XYZ, and then it kind of gets the energy going and the synergy, and people are like, hey, I want to be nominated, and validated for my hard work in managing a customer that's happy with us, that's participated in XYZ. So that's another way to kind of showcase and highlight people. And then of course, getting it to be on an actual as part of their job. I mean, if they're managing, accounts, 80% of their accounts should be decently happy to okay, and 20% are probably going to be not so happy, but that's going to be a key performance indicator or an objective that they have as part of their job requirement. So that was done like later, a few years later. It took a long time to get everybody on board. But sometimes you have to go higher up to the CEO or the CCO and say, hey, this should be a part of it. If they're not renewing accounts and they can't get advocates, and they're not doing a very great job of managing their customer or making sure that they're retaining the customers and getting them to a happy place. And you had your hand up, Sheila. Go ahead.
Well, I was just clapping for what you were saying, but I also, in the last organization I was doing customer marketing within, there was just kind of there was SLAs, and like 50% of the customer base had to at all times be referenceable, and that sat with CX. That doesn't sit on advocacy and customer marketing. I mean, of course we want to support them, and again, rewarding and creating good experiences and special experiences, but that really sits with them to make sure that those relationships are such that we can call upon 50% of our customer base to participate one way or another. And it may, like you were saying, Tiffany, be a simple kind of sales reference call where they can kind of personally and privately do a one-on-one conversation to help close an opportunity. Frequently it's not going to be a case study, certainly with branding approved. But I think that having those agreements, I've I've worked in an environment where those agreements with leadership were not really in place. It was kind of like people liked this idea, but there wasn't that foundational agreement that this is something our company, our organization is going to work towards. And I think when you have when you don't have the agreements, it can be real, it's so hit and miss. And so, yeah, I think, making those agreements, putting in kind of those SLAs, and certainly around the reference program, like for us having to potentially provide the references, how much time do we have? Where does how does that request have to be logged? All of those kinds of things. And I think there's so much groundwork and foundational work. I think many of us just get thrown into it because we're building the plane as we're flying the plane, because deals have to close, case studies have to be written. And so again, trying to go back and get some of those agreements, I think, is really important to success.
Right. And a few ways you can make it kind of more programmatic, so to speak, or, tie it into operations is, of course, initially there's probably no Salesforce object that where people can check that is this customer referenceable or not, yes or no. And if it is, it should be a field where you have to check at some point to go into the next screen, whether it's yes or no. And maybe we want to make sure that the no's are there so we don't call a client that is upset or pissed off at us. And a way that I do to kind of help is, so after a client has, onboard or implemented, right? There's a one pager where we have the contacts. Like, okay, now that implementation is done, this person is going to be, Tiffany's going to be our CSM. And there's a one pager where the training link, customer advocacy, if they want to write a review for us, they can write a review. We can give them a $25 gift card. Because sometimes people use the sandbox or they really test out our platform and they have positive things they can say and they're ready to write a review. And if that timing is everything, right? You got to strike when the iron is hot, when they're happy, because who knows, in 3 months they might not be so happy. So making it programmatic where every time there's this document, a lot of times I draft up a lot of this, and it is a lot of work. I'll draft up the email content or blurb that I want them to send to get people to go to our booth before a trade show or a conference, or I'll draft up that document and then they'll send it out. So the PM or the engineer, whoever is in charge of transitioning that to the CS person, they always have that document to go back to. And then the link to the customer community, if they want to join, right? Customer advocacy, join today and get like a hoodie or a t-shirt, in the customer community and so forth. So those are ways that you can do it where you make sure that you tap them, and every new client that onboards has that, and you can reach out to them, right, and get a pulse check. And, we get notifications of wins, but there was no way to get it to talk where it would automatically send me something. I just have to look at the emails that are being announced where, oh, we just won this customer. It's a big brand and they've been testing us for 90 days. Then I have to put on a tracker, make sure I reach out to the CS or the salesperson and say, how was your experience? And then sometimes, they had to give a discount and they say, oh yeah, they're definitely going to write us 3 reviews. They say they do a case study in 6 months, once they've used the platform. So that was all manual, but those are other ways to kind of, farm and kind of build a tracker of customers that you can leverage, that we're happy with your service or the sales process, or they got a discount and you had to include something. Since you got to give them a discount, you might as well get something from them, right? 3 positive reviews from your team, XYZ, a customer quote or something like that. So those are other ways to kind of build in, processes to make sure that, advocacy is there and they're aware that there is a community they can join and chime into with questions and to have discussions. Anybody else? Any questions?
I'm so sorry. I'm not trying to monopolize this conversation. There's just a lot of good things that are popping up with what you're sharing, Tiffany. I was just going to mention that at one point in one of my companies, I actually was the win announcements for internal people. So throughout the organization, we would broadcast that we won this new business. And so being that I created a template, and it was, very templatized, but I got the feedback, straight from the CSO, straight from the, account executives on the deal. And then that also helped keep me very tuned in to the pulse of like, who are the new customers? Where are they coming from? When are we closing those deals? So that you stay really close to that instead of, oh, surprise, there's, 4 new customers that I had no clue, had signed on.
Right. Anyone else have any other questions, feedback, or community platforms that they really like? I know Allison, so I'm gonna kind of call out on you because I know that you've done a lot of this. Like, I don't know how many different platforms you use. I mean, we talked about like Salesforce integration, and you had mentioned, what other platforms have you used in the past, and what do you like best and why? Because I'm trying to think outside of Influitive right now at this point, because from the looks of things, they're not going to be like an option in the future if I were to do demos and try to pick a platform to manage a community.
Were you actually talking to me, Tiffany?
Yes, Allison.
Because I really don't have a lot of experience running communities. So I'm the customer for a vendor in the space, Reference Edge, but I do the customer marketing and the general marketing. So the community hasn't been a piece of ours. So
Okay.
really my only experience is hanging out in other people's communities and seeing how everybody else runs them. But I always like to find out the different pieces of customer marketing that I'm not doing and kind of be a fly on the wall. So
Okay.
I feel very sorry for all of you who were really influitive though, and ran into all the troubles there, because that's no fun when you're rolling along and you're happy and then that happens. So
Right. Does anyone else have any questions, or we could talk about, anything else related to customer marketing? So for rewards programs, how do you get your, I guess, indicators? What kind of indicators do you use to pull together a rewards program, or an awards program? I mean, like, if you nominate your customers, do you ask for topics, or do you just find you talk to your product people or engineers to try to, create these award programs? I'm curious how people are putting those together and how they work to get, topics or criteria for awards.
You mean like annual awards presented at a conference?
Oh, rewards, like, how people launch reward programs.
Rewards. Sorry, I
Mhm.
thought you said awards, not rewards.
Oh, awards. I meant awards. I keep going back to rewards. Awards. Yeah, awards programs.
Yeah, for us, it depends on how many categories you want to have, like what your goals of the program is and what kind of investments you could make. I've done it where it's been, just kind of one category, and you get all these nominations, you come up with 5 finalists, and then you do really nice high quality video testimonials on them, and then people vote for the one that they like the most. And the more recent example, we had 6 or 7 different categories. And so people would go, okay, I want to be part of the data center modernization, or I want to be, part of this AI and innovation category. And you get as many nominations as you can. And then people basically are finalists in only one of the categories. But, and then from there, you do case studies, and you don't have a voting, but you get, you have a judges panel and they select it. But really a lot of times the key themes and what you're trying to award people for. We'd put something out there based on company strategy, what's important to leadership, that sort of thing. But we would get buy-in from product marketing, from ultimately the marketing leadership. We meet with the CMO and say, here's what we think, but we get input from, various sources throughout marketing, throughout the like PR and AR team. but also just, what we know is important to the company as far as strategy and that sort of thing.
Right.
And then, get input and finalize it and, go. But most of the nominations themselves, we would get from the account teams and really, get them to nominate their customers.
So they nominate, and then how long does this process take from A to Z? Like, say you say we want to launch an awards program. We got to do it 90 days to 4 months. And then, is it, do you reach out to the customers yourself, get the CS person, and who gets to be the deciding factor? Like, who are the people that decide, okay, this is the winner? Do you pick 5 people in engineering, 3 from product, or how does it happen at the very end where they get to decide who it is?
Well, so it depends on how expansive you are. I mean, ultimately, it almost could be a year-round program. I mean, for us, it was probably a 3-quarter long program because we would want to go out for a call for nominations in, let's say, April, which means we needed to back that up a number of weeks to kind of figure out what the criteria was for that year, what the goals were and all of that. Then you could launch that while you're still working on other stuff. We probably, because we had so many categories, we had over 50 judges. So they were people in products, they were executives in the company. I mean, we had, CIO would, do it. And not everybody judged everything. Like they would judge a category. And so they might get 10 stories to evaluate, for example. So while you're getting the nominations, you're getting all that stuff. So like we would have maybe the nomination process kick off in April for something that we were going to ultimately award and celebrate in November.
Okay.
Because what we did is we wrote success stories for every single one. I mean, if you were going to be in the award program, you were finalists or an honorable mention or whatever, you were going to have a success story. So we needed a lead time for all of that.
Right. And that's a way to get them. So did you get a lot of pushback? Because I can see, when you launch these, sometimes customers are happy to be a part of it. Sometimes guys are like, oh, it's more work. I just don't have the bandwidth and so forth. So do you get a lot of pushback from internal teams? The judges probably like to do, like engineers, like, oh, yeah, I want to do a product because they want something that they're working on to be highlighted, right? And so forth, or feature or functionality. So how did you rally a bunch of people to support you and so forth? Was it a lot of effort? Did it take a long time? Lots of meetings with the heads of CS and product and so forth?
I mean, we already had the program when I joined my last company, but it was basically based on one that I had created at Citrix many years ago. So, I mean, I kind of have taken these things from like one company and then I, started at another one and then I came to another one and they already had a Word program and then we edited it. I think, you get the right folks engaged and you scale it for what you can do, and how many resources you have. But I think the key is, it's about celebrating the customer and celebrating what they've done for their company, not about who bought the most, who's got the biggest deal on the table. It is not, I mean, I've literally had fights with, people that were like, no, you've got to have Citibank, they need an award. I'm like, well, then they need to do this. Well, they'll never do that. I said, well, then they're not part of the award program. Well, I need to get an award. I'm like, you can make up your own award. It won't be the transformation award, you feel like you need to give them something. So, but, you make sure you get sales leadership involved because you want sellers to be nominating it. If you've got a strong customer success area, you want them involved. Product for sure, executives, we had the events team because it culminated in an event, whether it was virtual or not. We had press releases about it. We had stuff on the website. I mean, it involved a lot of different parts of, the marketing organization.
And a lot of like Citibank is already large, right? It's not like they need more visibility to their brand, Citibank, right? And I find that
it wasn't, I mean, the ones we wanted to go after were the big names. Like we were trying to get those customers who wouldn't normally do a success story with us. But if you said, we think what you did is really amazing with, your AI solution service now, and we want to, nominate you for this award that's going to be, presided over by our executives. In order to do that, we need you to be able to talk to this, the story publicly. It got some of those people who wouldn't normally do it to do it. So we were going for the bigger names, and giving them the award and giving them the recognition was what was motivating to them. And there were
Right.
small companies too, but of course the judges all wanted to see the big brand names, the amazing outcomes, the, amazing use cases, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
But I mean,
Exactly.
you need a project manager, like it's not a one-person job.
For sure. And it's trying to find that balance between the mid-market, the enterprise customers, and the small ones, right? The smaller ones, they do a
Yeah.
lot of great things too, and they need to be highlighted. And we're selling to different markets, right? SMB, mid-market, and enterprise. So we need a
So
little bit of
we had different
everything.
categories. Yeah, we had different categories. So there was one that was more like I can't remember what we called it at the time, but it was meant to go after some of the more smaller ones. And we had a service provider category because, these huge service providers, would have, outweighed anybody else in some of the other categories. So we did it usually by like product, AI, data center, that sort of thing. And then we might have a kind of an innovators, which would be kind of that up and coming, like a small and a large enterprise. But we didn't break it. Like people wanted us to go by industries and, every different way. And it's like, you got to
You
figure
can
out.
only slice and dice
Like,
it so many different ways, right?
yeah.
10 ways to skin a cat. Awesome. I mean, I was lucky Influitive did help with a lot of this. I was pretty much a one woman show, excuse me, for a really long time, doing everything from sending out swag manually and so forth before we got Thanks. Thanks made certain things a lot easier, right? It was easy, it was turnkey, it's digital. So, but a lot of us, don't have all the different platforms, right? Because of CS, it was in their team, but I was able to use it as well, right? Because that's a different budget. And then my budget is Influitive and so forth, and getting people to write reviews, doing all of it. So it was pretty easy to manage, get participation and curate content for the employees. Where I would do social, they can just like it. I can curate pre-written, one-liners that they can cut and paste and share on LinkedIn with just 1-2 click of a button, right? So it made it really easy. But yeah, people that don't have it, not everybody has the budget or has a platform to manage it, and people are doing it manually and so forth. So it is kind of tough for us marketers and so forth.
Yeah, that was part of the reason with Influitive. I didn't move to Influitive early on was that it was like it sounded great, but it's like who's going to do the actual fulfillment of all of these things that you're, and at the time, I don't know if it changed over time. I know they're kind of not the same as what they were, but like they didn't have anything on that fulfillment side. So it was all on, you. There was there was a company that I used, well, not personally used. I won something at a Captivate Collective thing, and Sugar Wish was the name of the company, and I was able to go and select what wine or
Right.
I wanted or something like that. So Sugar Wish, again, as a user, it was helpful because I just went in and put in my information and what I wanted, and it,
I got that too from another client from I think it was Trust Radius. They sent me some coffee, whatever, and I went in and picked whatever coffee I wanted, and then had it shipped to me. So yeah, that's definitely another vendor that's great. I also have a lot of contacts, like I said, swag, cards, you name it. They make everything, right? Really cute child's cups and things like this that I'm using and so forth. Anyone else have any other questions, comments, want to chime in? Happy to talk about anything customer marketing. Bria, were you ever able to unmute yourself? I don't know.
Yeah, finally.
Yay! Go for it.
Oh, no, I don't even remember exactly what it was we were talking about. Let me scroll back up. Oh, our give back campaign. So I think we were kind of talking about year-end holiday kind of activations, and that's one of the things that we're kind of looking at. What we're kind of struggling with right now, and I don't even want to say struggling, but one of the things we're working on right now is being more strategic around hyper personalization. So understanding which customers we really want to target. So we have a number of communities within the community at large, if that makes sense. So we have like a Women in Tech. We've got our Supply Chain Leaders program, which is like our customer appreciation program. We've got our executive engagement program that we're doing. So there's a lot of different communities that we're sort of trying to create meaningful outreaches to. And that's how we found out that a lot of our advocates are executive level, which is unusual. We're pretty fortunate in that way, but it does create its own problems because as you get to be an executive, you don't really want for much, right? You can afford to pay for whatever you want. So the idea around that was to give back on their behalf, to make it more of a meaningful outreach on their behalf, but for them at the same time, if that makes sense. So that was really the strategy behind that. So we'll see how it goes. We've never done it before. I'll report back.
Yes, please, because for me, yes, a lot of the executives like VP and C-level folks were advocates. Some of them were in the community, but most of them, very few were, and the ones that were didn't really do any of the challenges, right, for points, right, because they're too busy. But I was lucky enough to have a good relationship where I can keep them on speed dial. Like I'll have their phone numbers and I can call them or text them for reference calls. So I was lucky. I kind of built it that way and got to know people, right, and so forth. And I would send them swag because that was when people were in the office and so forth, and I knew where they lived or whatever, and I could get their information and reward them that way. But a lot of, yeah, the executives that were references, VP and higher up, were not super engaged or active in the advocacy community, but they were advocates in other areas, right? Like quotes. If I needed a quote, I can literally just email them and boom, it's like, what do you think about this quote? Feel free to tweak it. And it's like, no, it looks good. You can use that or what have you. So different ways to leverage customers. And then I just send them swag. They like it. Our hoodies were great, good quality swag, right? And then anything else they like if they like wine or what have you, we'll have something delivered and so forth. So yes, report back. Let me know how your program goes.
Definitely.
Okay, so we're 2 minutes out. Thank you everyone for joining. If you have any questions, want to link in with me, questions or concerns about anything customer marketing, I'm happy to help. And I'm gonna make sure that everybody, gets out on time and enjoy your weekend.
Thanks for hosting, Tiffany.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.
Take care. Have a great weekend, everyone. Bye.